Hi everyone,
G'day.
welcome to Parkside Online. We are so thankful that you have joined us, and we are really hoping that tonight. No, I did the tonight thing.
3, 2, 1, and
Hi everyone,
g'day.
welcome to Parkside Online. We are so thankful that you have joined us,
Yeah.
and we hope that as we chat about isolation or being isolated and being restored, that you would sense the invitation of Jesus to belong.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I want to start tonight by sharing a story. It seems like another life ago, but I was doing some work for the government, and we had been out in the bush for about 2 weeks, and we were being relocated in the back of these large trucks, and you just sat on bench seats on either side of the truck. Everyone faced in, and you got moved wherever you needed to get to move on. They were big trucks, 4-wheel drives. And as we were lumbering down this bush track, there was kind of a rhythmic sway. And I remember sitting there and just starting to get a bit relaxed. And I was leaning forward. I had my elbows on my knees, and I think for a brief moment I actually nodded off as the truck was, and as I kind of nodded off, the front of my shirt, which I've been wearing for that whole 2 weeks, just billowed out, and something, it was alive, and it felt like it crawled up from my socks, which I'd also been wearing for about 2 weeks, and just this just went up and out the top of my jacket, made a beeline for my nostrils, and I got to tell you, I nearly gave myself whiplash. It snapped my head up, and I've never felt anything so filthy in my life. And it was funny because nothing really changed in that moment.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably smelt the same for the last 7 days. We'd been there for 2 weeks. It was not a good thing. But in that moment, I guess I just realised how bad it had been and how filthy I felt. And of course, in that situation, everyone else in the back of that truck had felt the same thing. I didn't feel, because I was unclean, I didn't feel particularly on my own at all.
No.
However, in a similar thing, I'd been away for 3 days, and again not showered, and I actually had to then come back in and go to a meeting. And in that meeting, there were people who had, as most humans do, washing and showering every day, and I had to return, attend this meeting, and then go straight back out. And even though I don't think the smell was anywhere near as bad, it was very clear. I was given a lot of space in that meeting, and I just felt a bit isolated. And we're going to explore that tonight. Have you ever had a moment where you have felt, perhaps not the stench, but that you stood out, but in perhaps a negative sense?
I think just in like really feeling different. I felt like I've stood out, and so I felt like isolated, just having different thoughts and attitudes to some other people in the room, and so therefore can feel like you're not wanted. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if are you able to identify maybe one of those things that you felt?
I think I've been in rooms of people where I'm the only one who has had a faith, and so then that has been the isolating factor.
Yep.
For me, just because people have thought that it's done, like not a massive thing, but just like, well, you're over there, we're over here, we don't really have anything else in common.
Yeah,
at the start anyway of
yeah.
Yeah.
And as you're watching this, you may have had a moment in your life when you have felt like you are the dirty one, the unclean one. And if you're watching with some friends, this is probably a good opportunity to share a couple of those experiences. Some of them may be quite trivial, like mine. Sometimes when we feel isolated, when we feel excluded from the group, they can actually be defining moments in our lives. And sometimes that can be powerful and I think empowering. Sometimes it can be destructive and quite reductive. We're going to open up the scriptures now, draw a bit of inspiration. We're going to start here. We're moving through a series at the moment, the Kingdom of Contrasts. And what we're going to do is we're just going to pick up this reading here in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 1. And I'm going to read from verse 21 actually. Jesus and his companions, his friends, went to a town, and the town's called Capernaum. And when the Sabbath day came, he went into the synagogue, which is where the people gathered for religious teaching, for community stuff, for cultural training, and they gathered there. Jesus began to teach. The people were amazed at his teaching, for he taught with real authority, quite unlike the teachers of the law. And if you've watched before, this may seem familiar to you. It's because we read it actually last week. But here we go. Suddenly, there was a man in the synagogue, a man in this gathering, who had an evil spirit or an unclean spirit and began shouting, "Why are you interfering with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Jesus cut him short. "Be quiet, come out of the man," he ordered. At that, the evil spirit screamed, threw the man into a convulsion, and then came out of him. Amazement gripped the audience, and they began to discuss what had happened. "What sort of new teaching is this?" they asked excitedly. "It has such authority, even unclean spirits obey his orders." And so I just want to pick up on the description there. When we had a discussion earlier around this table, some people shared that they had moments where they felt they had been confronted by a force from another world. And other people shared that if you're living particularly in Western countries, that often the idea that there are things beyond what we can see and measure is dismissed as irrelevant. And we can understand why. I mean, I think if you live in a world where you can store food for 2 weeks in a refrigerator, where you can press a button and control the climate in your house, that to most of the world's population, they're the characteristics of a god. But then there's also other things that we just don't encounter. And what I want to focus on is actually what this person had was something in them that set them outside the cultures and the norms of their day. Like, that's why it's called unclean. There were a series of protocols. If you wanted to go back through the old instruction, the Torah, if you were defined as unclean, there are a whole heap of practices that you had to go through. I'm reading through Leviticus at the moment, actually, and if you touch a dead body, you are unclean until sunset. And then you have to go and present yourself to someone to be examined before you are readmitted to the community. If you carry a certain type of skin disease, according to this culture, you are defined as unclean, and you actually have to shout out that word as you walk down the street. It is something that isolates you. And in that kind of culture, then we find this person has something within them that is described as being unclean. It's not just something on their outside, it's not an action that they've done, but they feel that there is something within them that sets them apart in a negative way from the rest of their community. They feel like, I am isolated, that I have been cut off. And that can be a very difficult thought to overcome. If you walk into a room and you feel like, I am not good enough, you will never have anything to contribute, because what is inside you is saying, I don't belong here. If you are moving through a community and you think, I don't feel I fit in here, even that sense, whether it's true or not, can actually exclude you and stop you having conversations with different people because of what is within you. And sometimes that can rise up like the stench that I talked about, in moments that actually just serve to push other people away from us, because other people can pick up on our sense of shame that I don't belong in here. And this person in this gathering, in this synagogue, would surely have felt out of place. And I think as we read here, this person has they cry out. And I kind of picture it as this, this involuntary response. They feel what is in me has overtaken my life. Yeah. I cannot change it, but I want to. I want it, which is a profound place to be in. Yeah. And as we look at our context, and as you look at your context, your life may be dominated by something within you. And you can recognize the destructive power of what is within. And I want to talk to those of us who have realized I can see the destructive power and I don't like that. And there are moments in our lives when we have clarity. I've been a person who's had to deal with the way I express anger towards other people. And I knew that it was destructive. But when you express anger in a forceful way, it's a powerful feeling. And so even though I was aware that it was destructive, I didn't want to change. I didn't want to change. And it's when you realize something's wrong and you want to change, where do you go to? What do you do to turn to? What do you do to see that transformation happen? And in this case, what we've got here is this person just cries out to Jesus. And when he cries out to Jesus, well, this thing within him actually cries out. But there's this one question that stands out. Of the questions that were asked, what stood out to you?
I don't know. Like there's one where whoever is crying out is going, "Why are you interfering with us?" And Jesus hadn't really done anything to the person or to them yet. Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good highlight, isn't it? That we can go through knowing things aren't great, but if we're not at that point, the decision point yet, then anyone who offers help is regarded as interference. Yeah. You might see the destructive effects. Everyone else might see the destructive effects, but it's not until we're at that point of change that we welcome any assistance. And that's probably a word for some of us who are wanting to help someone too. Be prepared. If you try and step in and that person's not willing to change, you're going to be pushed away as, what are you doing? Why are you trying to interfere here? And I guess the other side of it is, if you are dealing with something within and you're hearing these words, there will be no doubt part of you that thinks that what we're talking about right now, it is an interference. The question is there also part of you that says, but I want something else? Because what we see here is that when this person cries out to Jesus and says, have you come to destroy us? Actually, that's not Jesus' response. That Jesus' response is not to destroy, but actually to deliver. It's not to punish, actually, but to restore. Because he just says, come out. And then this man, it's a traumatic experience. And I joked about the stench, when it came, you can see here when it comes,
when we're at that point and we let go of whatever it is that has been dominating us, when we allow our thinking about our own shame or our own pain that we feel isolates us to change, it can be violently transformative. I don't think there's any hyperbole or exaggeration in this story of someone who cries out as this thing comes out. There's a revolution. And Jesus just says, come out. Come out. And the man gets thrown to the ground in a convulsion, but then he gets free.
Yeah.
And he's brought back into his community. And this is not a once-off, we've just chosen a short bit of narrative here, but as you go through, these are the stories that are told again and again and again. And we may have this picture of people getting free, but they're people who are being welcomed back into families, welcomed back into communities, people who are having their way of life restored. It's powerful. And I think we can carry our own sense of shame in a way that we push ourselves away from other people and we push other people away. We're not meant to live that way. It takes so much effort to carry around that shield. And yet if you're watching this right now and you're still with us at this point, I think it's possible that you are seeing a different way. I think it's possible that you are hearing the invitation that actually Renata talked about at the start. An invitation to being restored. And for others of us, as we're watching this, we might not feel a personal need for restoral, but we know someone who we can see the patterns of behaviour, that their behaviour is taking them down a path that is isolating. And we are hoping for restoral for them, restoration for them. If you're seeking that change, then we're just going to offer a simple prayer, just to come to Jesus like this man did here. And just say, Jesus, I give you my life. You know what it is within you. You know that when you look inward, that thing that just rises up and repulses you. And the simple prayer is, Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. Give me that sense of belonging, that group of people that will support me like a family. Because that's what the kingdom of heaven is about. Finding some companions like Jesus walked into town with. If that's the decision that you're ready to make as you're watching this, then pray with us now. Those simple words, Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life.